One of the criticisms of your country is that you're too close to Iran. And I should say you're very physically close to Iran.
Yeah, we are physically close.
How close?
It's around 120 miles away.
Right across the water.
Yeah, it's just, you can have a boat ride in 90 minutes, you are there.
So how would you describe your relationship with Iran? And why do you think you're being criticized for it?
Look, it's, Iran has a lot of problems with the West. We understand that, we acknowledge that. They have problems with the region, with countries in the region, yes. At the end of the day, Iran is, our next door neighbor. And we have to maintain a good relation with all our neighbors. We have a lot of things in common when it comes to the gas field, the largest gas field in the world. It's partnership between us and Iran. It's two-thirds of it in the Qatari territory and one-third is in the Iranian territory.
This is in the Gulf. This is undersea.
Yeah, this is the one in the Gulf Sea. I have to coordinate on environmental issues, like, for example, the water contaminations. I have to coordinate on security issues like smuggling. I have to have this working relationship with Iran. But also when you think about it from a bigger perspective, it's for the interest of the region to have a better relation for everyone in the region with Iran. And you have seen that there is a huge progress in the relationship with Iran and between Iran and the GCC in the last few years. Even the disagreement that we had on certain policies, for example, we worked against each other in Syria for 14 years.
Against Iran.
Against Iran, yeah.
Right, which was backing Hezbollah and you were opposed.
And the same thing in Lebanon. And those differences are put aside when it comes to the bilateral. We made the bilateral as a relationship of necessity, that we need to have this engagement together all the time. Those disagreements, we talk about them. We try to understand each other's concern. And we try to find a common ground. And basically, that's what we expect from other countries to do when they are, around neighbors that some others has disagreements with. You need to engage. This is criticized in the U.S. that we are close to Iran in terms of what? In terms of policies that has controversies with the U.S. It's not true. Our policies has been very clear. Our policy is based on principles. Our policy has zero enemies. We have to have friends with everyone. We would like to see peace in our region. We would like to see a peace around the world. If we see innocent people under attack, whatever their backgrounds, we will always help them and will support them. These are the things that our foreign policy standing for. So if they see me that, this is like putting me on a club on the other, they are watching me from thousands of miles away. They don't know what's happening in this region. They have no knowledge about it. This relationship, it's an important relationship, not for me, for the entire GCC and for the entire GCC stability. Look, Tucker, I think that there is a misunderstanding, or let's say maybe it's more about a legacy issue, that the U.S. needs to take care of the whole world problem. This shouldn't be the case. Each region needs to address their own problems, needs to make sure that this region is stable. The U.S. is the friend and the ally and the partner of all the GCC countries. So the U.S. expects from us to come to them with vision, that this is the way we would like to see the region, and that's the way we are going to work on the region. And we would like to have also your support in that direction. That's, I believe, how the relationship should work between us and the U.S. Not I'm waiting for the U.S., what's the problem between them and Iran, and then I based my dealing with Iran based on what the U.S. want. The U.S. is waiting to listen to me what I need from Iran, because I am the friend of the U.S. and Iran is my next door neighbor. And basically, I think this misunderstanding, or let's say the legacy issue, that's what's driving this whole narrative floating here and there. I think that one day, everything will be resolved diplomatically. If I take a stand against my neighbor because of an external issue, very strong stand, what I'm going to do if those two adversaries come together.
So I think it's the policy of your government that you oppose Iran getting nuclear weapons. Certainly your neighbors are on the record against it. How close do you think Iran is to getting a nuclear weapon, to building one?
Well, look, actually, a nuclear weapon is bad for the region, for any country, whether it's Iran or any other country. But also, like when it comes to developing a nuclear program, there are concerns, of course, whenever any nuclear program is developed around your region. And those concerns can be not only military concerns, but also security and safety concerns. That, as I mentioned to you, if the water is contaminated, the nuclear facilities of Iran are on the other side of the coast. It's closer to Doha than Tehran itself. So the risks and the threats is affecting me, my country, affecting other countries in the GCC more even.
So there's a nuclear site directly across from you.
Yeah. And that's basically, that's why it's putting the entire region in a lot of risk if there is no clear standards for managing those nuclear facilities, and those clear standards ensuring that this is a nuclear power plant that will be used for peaceful use. Who's right and who's wrong, this is not for me to judge. Yet, what we would like to see a nuclear program that have complying with the international standard. We are speaking with the Iranians all the time that we need to work together. We need to work with the IAEA in order to ensure that those standards are followed. There are a lot of news and headlines. We see that Iran is close to a nuclear weapon. This is nothing we have ever heard, we have ever seen, or experienced. Even our engagement with the leaders there, even with the supreme leader, he said very clearly that he has issued a fatwa or a declaration that Iran will never go for a nuclear bomb. And basically, this has also its moral status within the country. So I hope that we can reach to a solution, a diplomatic solution where, there is prosperity for the region, sanctions are lifted, nuclear program is peaceful, and assurances for the entire region. And this will be, I think, a booster for the region development and prosperity.
So there's a great deal of pressure in Washington on the White House and on the Congress to participate in or sign off on an attack, an aerial bombardment of the Iran nuclear sites, however many there actually are, one of which, as you said, is directly across from you. So you think about this a lot. What would be the consequences if that happens? And that's not theoretical, as you know, that could happen soon. What would happen next?
Well, I think it will just will be a start of a war that will spread all over the region. And basically, do we expect from any country to get attacked and to stay silent? There will be a reaction. Those reactions and retaliations, where it's going to be? Are they going to reach thousands of miles away? They are going to be in the region. And basically, every country in the region are concerned from such a step because it will affect our security, number one. But also for a country like the US, it will affect their security as well. They have a big stake in that region, whether it's on military bases, whether it's on energy facilities in that region, economic interest. Forget about everything, educational facilities. So all those, interests will be affected if something, God forbid, erupt in that region. There is no way that Qatar would, support any kind of military step in that region. And we will not give up until we see a diplomatic solution between the US and Iran. This needs to reach to an agreement.
May I ask, just going back a second, you've said that there's the Iranian nuclear facility directly across the water from you. Mm-hmm. If that were blown up and nuclear material wound up in the water, since it's right on the water, what would happen to the water?
This will be basically entirely contaminated. We have run this exercise of risk in the country. A few years ago, before we built our reservoirs, we had the water that we use for our people is from desalination. And we don't have rivers, we don't have water reserves. And basically, the country would run out of water in 3 days. So
the whole country?
The whole country. Now, after the reservoirs, we increased that capacity and we keep increasing it. But this is not only applied for Qatar. This is applied for Qatar, this is applied for Kuwait, this is applied for UAE. It's all of us in that part.
So if that nuclear site gets blown up and nuclear material winds up in the water, none of those countries have water?
No water, no fish, no nothing. Like, it has no life.
Oh, so that would be a history-changing environmental catastrophe.
It is an environmental catastrophe. That's why I'm telling you that's the position of Qatar in the map and the region with Iran. A lot of people, they don't even understand it. I remember once I went to, visit the U.S. Congress, and I was meeting with one U.S. senator. And we were discussing about Iran. And he said, basically, you don't have to deal with them. And I drew for him a map on his desk. For the first time, he realized that these two countries are that close to each other. So there are a lot who doesn't see this region as close, to Iran, and like it's too intertwined.
So they don't have maps in the Senate?
No, they do have maps, but probably they don't know how to spot Qatar. We are very small.
Do you think, to the extent you can say, I should say you're the prime minister, but you're also the foreign minister, so this is what you do all day, every day. But to the extent you can say, do you think that the Iranian government is willing to de-escalate through negotiation, open up its nuclear sites to international inspection of some kind, reassure the world they're not 2 weeks away from getting a bomb, as we read practically every day on the internet, whether it's true or not? Do you think that's achievable?
Well, I think it is achievable. And actually, all the engagement that we had with Iranian officials, as I mentioned to you, we were just there a few days ago, actually, and engaging with the president, engaging with the supreme leader, with the foreign minister over there, in order to find a diplomatic solution. And basically, they are willing to engage. They are willing to get to a level that create comforts for everybody. And most importantly, they are focused on mending their relationship with the region. And that's something in itself. It can create a lot of progress in every front with Iran. So I believe there is an opportunity. Now, we come back to the question, the chicken and the egg, which come first. I believe we should forget about these questions and, get the parties together, start to understand each other's concerns. And basically, if everything is complying with the international standards, I don't see any reason why we don't have a deal.
There's talk in the United States of increasing sanctions on Iran. I didn't know that was possible, but Iran has been under some form of sanctions for almost 50 years. 46 years, I think. Have they achieved their intended goal? And bigger picture, have you ever seen sanctions against anybody achieve their intended goal?
Look, this issue is very controversial. First, as a principle for my country, for state of Qatar, we see unilateral sanctions are ineffective, and it's punishing the people, not punishing a country or a regime. That's number one.
They still have the revolutionary government from 1979 in power,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. I mean, if it would lead to a result, we wouldn't be in that situation until now.
Fidel Castro died in Havana.
Yeah.
After 50 years of U.S. sanctions.
So just, going back, sanctions, what does it create? Pressures the people, it starves them, it creates black markets, it creates a whole illegal system. If the sanctions are coming out of the U.S., it actually prevents all the U.S. interests or companies to have business and lose the opportunities for other countries. So I don't see a world where the sanctions work. Honestly, for us, as I told you, it's a core principle in our foreign policy. We refuse. We don't support sanctions at all. And sanctioning countries, I'm talking about. And sanctioning countries is just making the situation much worse.
Well, can I just ask you, so 3 of the biggest oil-producing countries in the world, Venezuela, Russia, Iran,
Yes.
have been under, the most extensive sanctions in history.
Yes.
They're still selling oil, though.
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of oil.
Yeah, much better. Yeah, I think it's mainly it's sold in different means, in different currencies. And look, Tucker, I recall when the Russian sanction came out at the beginning of the war between Russia and Ukraine. I had an interview in one of the U.S. media channels, and I said very clearly that sanctions will only create a parallel marketplace for other currencies. So the dollar-dominated international currency, you will start to see countries moving away from that.
Yes.
By the time. So it won't benefit. It won't benefit, it won't get you what you want. It's the contrary. That's basically what's been, at the end, like any country like Venezuela, for example, or Iran, they need to survive. They need to feed their people. They need to get, at least the basic requirements that they want. They will find ways to sell their oils. They will find ways to use other currencies. They will find markets who will accept them and, selling them and buying from them. And that's basically you created like a parallel market. And that's what I'm been saying.
So you cut out U.S. countries, you weaken the U.S. dollar, you make the country more repressive, inevitably, but you don't dislodge the leadership, whether it's Putin, Chavez Maduro, the Ayatollahs in Iran, Fidel Castro, and you don't prevent them from selling their oil in international markets. So why exactly would you levy sanctions?
Honestly, look, from at least, my humble experience looking at all those sanctioned countries, in the last, let's say, I always like to talk about my tenure in diplomacy, which is 10 years. In the last 10 years, I've seen a lot of sanctions floating around on a lot of countries. None of these sanctions has achieved the results that's intended for.
Well, I think that's true. It's not an ideological point. That's factually true, right?
It is factually true, yeah.
So why does why do we keep doing it?
Just, if you go and name a single country that has a regime change.
Yes.
Or an entire behavior change to the good because of sanction, you will not find any.
Okay, so again, I don't think what you're saying should be controversial because it's provable.
Yeah.
Go to Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So why? I think this morning I was reading, we're going to sanction this person more. There's got to be some reason that the U.S. Congress and various administrations have continued to want to do this, even though there's absolute proof that it doesn't work. What would be the reason to do it?
Well, look, as I told you, when I don't know, honestly, we can ask this question more for U.S., legislator and policymakers, but I think from my perspective, this is when you have, if you don't talk to the other party, if you don't want to use military, which is something that we never advise for, the only tool will remain in your hand is sanction to show power and to show leverage, which some people, they think that this is leverage and power, which is not.
It doesn't seem to be.
No.
Power's measurable, right?
Actually, look, as just, if you go through every sanctioned countries, it never achieved the objective. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, I think that's it's true. How does the Ukraine war end, do you think?
Well, look, there is a lesson that history taught us, that there is no war started with one of the parties wants the war. Always two parties, they don't want the war, and they end up in a war. And there is no war ended without a negotiation around the negotiation table to find a peaceful solution. Despite how long it took. So this war will end at the end of the day around the negotiation.